Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Anil Gupta from University of Jammu. Today we are going to talk on the module Environmental Factors Analysis from the paper Strategic Management. At the end of this module, you will be able to understand the concept of business environment, learn about its characteristics, also differentiate between internal and external environment, analyze different classifications of environment influencing the industry as well as strategy. You'll also be able to understand the need to study the business environment. Students, let us talk about the concept of business environment. Environment generally refers to objects, surroundings, circumstances, and the whole situation which affects someone or something existence. However, in the context of business, environment refers to the factors which have a bearing on the working and functioning of the business. It consists of all those forces, both internal and external, that affect the working of the business. It includes to the conditions, forces, events and situations within which business enterprises have to operate. Business and its environment are closely related to each other, and the effective of their interaction of the two leads to business to a success. An organization can survive and grow only when it is able to keep pace with the changing environment. Let us look at some of the definitions of business environment. According to Wheeler, business environment is the total of all things external to the firms and individuals, which affect their organization and operations. Another definition looks the business environment as environment factors of constraints are largely, if not totally, external and beyond the control of individual industrial enterprises and their arrangements. These are essentially the givers within which the firm and their management must operate in a specific country, and they vary, often greatly from country to country, which was said by Barry M. Richmond and Melvin Cooper. According to Glick and George, the environment includes outside the firm, which can lead to opportunities for or threats to the firm. Although there are many factors, the most important of the sectors are socio-economic, technical, supplier, competitors, and government. Students, let us look at what are the characteristics of environment. Number one, the environment is very complex. Why is it complex? Because it's a combination of various factors. While doing the analysis, the strategist or managers can look into the political factors, economic factors, legal, social factors, cultural factors, and technological factors. All these factors would further have many subcomponents, and each of these factors can possibly have an influence on the business. And it is said it is complex because the influence of these factors cannot be recognized independently, which leads it to a very complex kind of nature. Number two, environment is very dynamic. As it is a mixture of many factors which are constantly changing, it makes the environment very dynamic. It's very important for us to understand that these changes that take place in the above mentioned factors may not be constant. And there can be both national, regional, and international forces which can lead to these changes, and such changes can be very fast. So all these environmental factors changes with the passage of time. And with the change of these factors, it's important that the plans and policies of the business should also keep a pace with the changing environment. At number three, the environment also affect different firms differently, which basically means that if there is any change in the environment, it may not affect all the businesses in the similar manner. One business may welcome a change in the environment, whereas some other business might feel the adverse effect of the same change. So therefore, we can say that the environment may affect different business units in different manner. So it is up to the strategist and the managers to see and identify that any change that is taking place in the environment, how will it influence their own business. At number four, we can say that the environment has both short-term and long-term impact. So any change in the environment can possibly have both short-term and long-term impact. The changes in the environment can affect the profitability of the firm. It can have an impact on the productivity of the firm, and also can result in the development of the business both in the short term and long term. So at number 5, we can say that there are unlimited effects of external environment factors. Students, it's important to keep this in mind that the external factors of the business environment are not in the control of the manager. However, these factors have a very deep effect on the business. Some of the factors can be so deep that it can result in the closure of the business. Say for example, decision of government to ban tobacco can compel business to wind up its operations. Environment is also uncertain. The external environment is very uncertain and there can be sudden changes in any given point of time. And as the result of this uncertainty, it becomes very difficult to study and constantly analyze the changes and trends in the environment. In addition to the uncertainty of the environment, it makes it more complex because there are a number of interdependent components. There are various components which can result in the change of the other component. Different components of the environment can affect each other. For example, any change in the economic environment can also affect a social environment, and so on. When we talk of environment, it basically includes both internal and external environment, where internal environment relates to the environment within the organization which is controllable, and external environment pertains to the environment outside the organization which is uncontrollable. We will see into the detail that how these internal and external environment can be understood in more in detail. So let us look at what are the components of business environment. As I have discussed earlier, the business environment can be divided into two broad components. The internal environment, which relates to the factors which are internal to the organization, and it is important for us to know that such factors are in the control of the manager of the organization. The second is the external environment, which is related with the factors which are external to the organization. And such factors are not in the control of the firm, and any changes that take place in the external environment influences the internal environment. As discussed in the previous slide, I've shown that the environment consists of internal and external. Now let us talk about what is an internal environment. A number of elements which exist inside an organization are termed as its internal environment. These factors either act as a strength for an organization or may also become a reason of weakness of the organization. These internal factors have an impact on the organizational decisions and strategy. So let us see that what are the elements of internal environment. So while studying or doing the appraisal of the internal environment, one should look at what is the management philosophy and the value system. The values and ideologies of the promoters or the founders can affect the selection of the business. It can have a strong influence on the working of the organization, what kind of principles and policies are adopted within the business, and what is the general working culture. So such values are shared among all the employees. So identification and studying the management philosophy becomes important. At number 2, it's important to study the mission and objective. The mission of the business expresses its vision in words, while the objectives are more actionable and measurable steps to achieve the mission. Both the mission and objective guide the business philosophy, policy, priorities, and the kind of business where the firm intends to work. At number 3, studying the management structure and its nature becomes important. It's important to know that the business decisions get influenced by the structure of the organization. It gets influenced by who are the board of directors. What is the composition of board of directors? What is the kind of organizational hierarchy that operates within the organization? And also, what is the extent of professionalization among the top management that can have an impact on the working of the organization? At number 4, while studying the elements of internal environment, it's important to study what are the internal power relationships. Students, we all know that the politics within the organization or the power structure within the organization can impact the working of the organization. What is the kind of support that the top management gives to the middle level and the lower level management, to its workers, and the shareholders will have a strong impact on the decision making and the working of the organization. We all know that human resources play a very critical role in the success of the organization. So, what is the quality of people you have? What kind of skills they possess? What is their level of morale, their commitment level, and their attitude can act as a source of strength or weakness of the organization. We are today talking of having a good human capital that can result in the success of the organization. So it's equally important to understand and study what is the image of the company. The reputation and the image of the company is very critical because it can help the firm to raise capital and finances. It can help the firm to form alliances with strong partners and also go in for joint ventures wherever necessary. Companies, those who possess strong brands, can also play a relevant role in the sale and purchase of contracts. It can help firm to launch new products which can ensure success in the market. So studying the image and the brand equity of the firm therefore becomes important. In addition to the elements that we have discussed earlier, there are some other elements of the business enterprise that can also help the decision making. Some of them are the physical assets and facilities that are owned by a firm. What kind of production capacity you possess, what kind of technological access you have, and how well are you connected through the logistics company can play a critical role. Firms, those who are technological driven, so it's important to study what kind of R&D and technological capabilities a firm possesses. This can enable an enterprise to innovate and come up with competitive offerings which can differentiate the firm from rest of the competitors. Equally important is to study the financial factors, which consist of financial policies, position, capital structure of the business, and other important business strategies which are dependent on the financial resources which are possessed by the firm. Marketing resources can play an important role in determining the success of the firm. It directly affects the efficiency of marketing activities. For instance, having a strong distribution network, having adequate skills and quality people in the marketing function, or having the ability to acquire marketing resources can facilitate a business in brand extensions, new product development, and marketing success in the long run. Now, let us look at the external environment. As I have told earlier, the external environment is not controllable by the managers. An external environment relates to all factors which exist outside the business. Studying external environment can help you to identify what are the opportunities that exist and also identify what are the threats that can possibly affect the business. While studying the external environment, the managers can go and study the economic environment, the socio-cultural environment, the legal environment, the demographic environment, and so on. These factors are beyond the control of the company. The external environment can further be divided into two broad categories, that is the micro environment and the macro environment. Just look at this picture that can help you to understand what is the difference between various environments. At the center of the picture you can see is the business, and immediately affecting the business are few of the stakeholders. For example, suppliers, your competitors, your own customers, the publics, and the marketing intermediaries. So these can be put and classified as the micro environment. Any changes in the components which are mentioned here directly affect the business. In the outside circle you can see there is macro environment. So macro environment can include the political environment, the legal setup of the country or the area where you work, the demographic factors of the society at large where you operate, the socio-cultural environment, the natural environment in terms of the access to resources that the area possesses, the economic environment, which basically talks of the rate of growth of the economy and so on, and the technological environment. They are classified under the macro environment. And outside, if you see, there is a square box which talks of the mega environment, which can include the international factors that can have an influence on the macro environment as well as the micro environment, which ultimately results in affecting the business, which is at the center of this picture. So let us see that what is this micro environment. As I have told earlier, the micro environment consists of factors which exist in company's immediate environment, and these can have a bearing on the company's performance. The micro environment includes your suppliers, your marketing intermediaries, which can include your channel partners, your immediate competitors that can affect your business, your customers itself are part of the micro environment, and the publics, which are constantly watching you. And with the emergence of a strong media as well as social media, publics play a very important role in influencing the business. The micro environment is also known as the task environment, and sometimes people also call it as the operating environment. Studying the micro environment therefore becomes very important, because any change in the micro environment can affect the operations of the business. Let us now talk of the macro environment, which is also known as the general environment. The first component of the macro environment is the demographic environment. The demographic environment studies human population with reference to its size, density, literacy rate, sex ratio, age, composition, etc. The demand for goods and services, quantity and quality of production, distribution, etc. are all affected by the demography. For instance, a rapidly growing population indicates growing demand for many products. If we talk of the economic environment, a business firm closely interacts with its economic environment. Economic environment is generally related to the external forces which have direct economic effect on the business. The economic environment is the sum total of the following three things: economic conditions in the market, economic policies of the government, and the economic system of the country. So while studying the economic environment, the strategist can look into what are the economic conditions, which can help you to know that what is the stage of a particular country in terms of economic development, what is the national income or per capita income of that particular country. These factors can have a strong influence on demand and supply of goods and services. It's equally important to study the economic policies, which can include studying monetary and fiscal policy, export-import policy, the industrial policy of the area, licensing policy, and so on. It's equally important to study the economic system, that what kind of economy is the area where you intend to work. As we know that the economic system can be classified as the capitalist economy, socialist economy, or a mixed economy. We all know that India, being a mixed economy, offers the features of both capitalist as well as socialist economy, where private and public sector can play an equally important role in the development of the region. At number 3 is the natural environment. We all know that the business units are directly or indirectly dependent on the natural environment. It's important to study both geographical and ecological factors. For example, studying natural resources, the weather and climatic conditions, the topographic factors, the location aspects in the global context. The business operations cause considerable change in the ecological balance and the natural environment of the country. So business environment have to calculate the net cost of its venture, as there are tremendous pressures from environmental organizations which are looking into the contribution of a particular business towards the environment. Number 4 comes the technological environment. We all know that technology has today played a very critical role in the growth of any business enterprise. And with the change of technology at a very fast pace, your products and plants can become obsolete in a shorter time frame. Technological changes are so rapid that the businessman should be alert and flexible in order to quickly incorporate new technologies in the business organizations, which can only help them to survive and succeed in the competitive business world. At number 5 comes the political environment. The politics and the government can have a direct impact on the kind of economic system and policies adopted by a particular country. Business decisions are greatly influenced by the development in the political environment of any country. Any change in the government can result into the change of attitude, preference and objective by the government. So therefore, business firms should keep a track of all the political events. They should anticipate what are the changes that are taking place in the government policy and accordingly formulate their policies which are in the interest of the firm. At number 6, it's important to study the socio-cultural environment. It's important to understand that the socio-cultural fabric can result into opportunities and threats. Every society has a culture of its own. When we talk of culture, it includes the knowledge, belief, art, moral laws, customs, habits acquired by an individual member of the society. Business organizations cannot ignore the traditions, value systems, taboos, taste and preferences of the society. So businesses should realize that there are cultural differences between the societies, and therefore it is important to study the socio-cultural environment so that they can create products which are acceptable in a particular society. Finally, it's important to study the legal and the regulatory environment. Legal environment basically include laws which define the and protect the fundamental rights of individuals and organizations. It's important to study the legal and regulatory environment because the formulation of rules and regulations which can directly impact the business are the result of the changes taking place in such setup. Business firms should have a up-to-date and complete knowledge of the laws that govern the production and distribution of the goods or services. In whichever country the firm intends to operate, there should be a specialized legal cell within the organization that guides the top management about the changes that are taking place in the legal and the regulatory setup. After discussing the micro and the macro environment, let us now talk of the mega environment. Firms which operate at the international context are also having the mega environment. Mega environment mainly consists of the international environment, which is very important for the business. The international environment is an outcome of political and economic conditions in the international market. Business firms engaged in foreign trade are more affected by the changes in international environment factors like war, civil disturbances, political instability, changes in the trade policies in other countries with which India has trading links do affect Indian exporters and importers. Therefore, the business firm which cater to the foreign trade must constantly monitor implications of international environment on their business. The components of international environment are import and export policy of the country, rules and regulations laid down by international institutions like IMF, World Bank, etc., the policies of the trading blocs like SAARC, EEC, ASEAN, etc., foreign exchange regulations like tariffs and quotas, and the trade cycle like boom, recession at the world level. So it's important to ask this question that what is the need to study it? How does it really help the organization? So students, the study of business environment is relevant to the organizations because of the following reasons. It helps to frame the policies of the firm. By studying the business environment, firms can ensure optimum utilization of resources. They can keep a track of competitors, analyze their strategies, and formulate appropriate countermeasures. Since business is dynamic, the environment is changing, it's important for firms to be innovative. So a study of environment helps the firms to be dynamic and innovative. It can provide a good input for decision making and help to find out the strengths of the business. Studying business environment also helps you to identify what are your weaknesses that can prohibit you to capitalize on the opportunities that exist in the external environment. Studying the business environment can also help you to find appropriate opportunities that are in the interest of the business. Identify the threats which are posed to the business can have short-term and long-term impact on the existence of the business. It can help you to understand the market conditions and also adjust with the technological advancements that are taking place in the micro and the macro environment. A proper study of business environment also helps you to understand the various international events and their potential impact on the business. While studying the economic policies of the government, the study of environment can help you to appropriately design suitable strategies that can result in the benefit of the organization. Study of business environment also helps the firm to understand the political situation and its potential impact on the business, as well as foresee the impact of the changes in the socio-cultural setup and the kind of opportunities and threat it can potentially possess. So, what are the problems that managers face while understanding the environmental influences? It's important to understand that it is a very complex environment, is very complex. So, managers, while making decisions, have to conceive all the possible environmental influences. They should try to get an overall picture of the whole business environment, which is, of course, a very tedious task. The second problem which is faced by managers is about uncertainty. As we have discussed earlier, that the environment is constantly changing, the forces are constantly changing, and at times the change can be very fast that it becomes difficult to predict all changes, and as a result it becomes very difficult for managers to understand the impact of the events that can possibly influence the firm. Subsequently, the third problem that managers face is that it is a very complex and rigid problems that relate to the business environment. So while attempting to resolve such problems, managers have to take risk to work in the accordance with the environment. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. First, we discussed that business and its environment are closely related and the effective of interaction of two leads to business success. Business environment is complex and principally is a combination of many factors like political, economic, legal, social, cultural, technological, etc. We also discussed that environment is very dynamic, a mixture of many factors which are constantly changing. Any particular change in the environment may not affect all business in the similar manner. We also discussed that every change in the environment has both short-term and long-term impact on the business. Students, we also discussed that business environment includes both internal and the external environment. Internal environment relates to the environment which is within the organization, which is also controllable by the management. On the other hand, external environment is outside the organization, which is not controllable or uncontrollable by the management. The internal environment, which is related to the factors internal to the organization, which are considered as controllable, consists of factors which either acts as strengths or weaknesses for the business enterprise. On the other hand, the external environment, which is related with the factors external to an organization and are uncontrollable, includes all the possible opportunities and threats which exist in its external environment. The external environment consists of two types of environment, that is micro environment and the macro environment. The micro environment includes a number of factors which exist in the company's immediate environment and have a bearing on the company's performance. The macro or the general environment consists of factors in the general environment like the demographic factor, the natural factor, legal, political, cultural, etc. The mega environment mainly consists of international environment, which is very important from the point of certain categories of business. We discussed that the success of business depends to a great extent on its business environment. Therefore, strategic managers have to face different circumstances in their business like diversity of environmental changes, uncertainty, complex and rigid nature of problems. Thank you.